Hi, everybody. As Vera mentioned, I'm a project manager at Klein for the agricultural practice. And today I'll give you a bit of brief insight from our US project for the mosquito control market, which we conducted this year in 2021 for base year 2020. So before I start that, I'll give you a little brief introduction to Klein and Company before going on to our report scope and methodology, and then our market highlights and an outlook. So Klein has been in the market research and consultancy business for over 60 years. We have offices across the world, mainly in our headquarters in New Jersey, Parsippany, and as well as offices in Sao Paulo, in Dubai, in Brussels, London, Prague, as well as in Shanghai, Tokyo, Hyderabad, and New Delhi, India. This allows for our staff to be completely competent to manage projects across all over the world and in different languages. This allows us to have deep insight into many different industries and many different regions. We conduct market research in many different industries, including the agribusiness or agrochemical industry, but beyond that, within the automotive industry, within the consumer products, looking at things such as hair care products or salon nail care products. Within chemical industry, we look at ingredients used in personal care and in medicines. We look at construction materials, food and nutritional, personal care, as well as lubricants and specialty petroleum, as well as life sciences and medical devices. Our work is known for allowing our clients to develop good strategy and businesses, especially within our market consultancy group. We allow for good strategic development. We also look at different aspects for manufacturing and supply chain, and then we also look at technology and innovation. We have worked independently with our clients to help provide issues and solve business issues and help provide solutions towards their problems that they are looking for. Our methodology. We have a three-front approach. We look at primary research as well as secondary research to provide good business intelligence. So our primary research is sort of where we lean very heavily and what differentiates us from other market research companies. We tend to conduct in-depth interviews with all our key components within the industry. This is any sort of major supplier, distributor, end user, opinion leaders, government agency, trade organizations, anybody who we find would be pertinent to the field and would have the most knowledge across the industry. We also attend trade shows and conferences, and you try and develop a natural rapport with all our different clients so that we get as much information as possible for our research. To supplement our primary research, we tend to do secondary research, which is by looking at company reports, statistics bureaus, any sort of trade and professional agencies that have information that they're, any sort of new development that we can follow diligently. And we look at how it can impact the industry, and then also, what could it have on the future at large. And then between our interviews and, our secondary research, we always cross-check our information to make sure that we develop the best business intelligence for our clients so that we have a complete and comprehensive market approach. A little bit of information about this study, the mosquito control, market analysis and opportunities. This current study is in its 21st edition. And as I mentioned before, it is for the base year of 2020. And we forecast to the year 2025. This current edition, right now, we only have the US profile, which is available and published, but we have other countries, including Brazil, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mexico, and Thailand, which are planned for potential publication for 2022, if anybody would be interested. The way we look at this market is we segment our sales into adulticides and larvicides. And we look at sales for each of the different countries by the brand, suppliers, and then, the different types of products that are used in, sold for control. And we look at the insights from active ingredients, what are the key trends, and then an update on many viruses that might affect or impact on the sales for each year. Within the US report, we also have a end user survey, which gives us insights directly from people who are working within the industry. This report also now includes an interactive database for clients to go through. Right. So let me begin with some of the market highlights that we gathered from this year, and then following by the outlook. Mosquito vectors can transmit numerous diseases in the US. In the past few years, there have been many different diseases which have come through. Previously, we have had things like malaria, or in other countries like in Asia, we've recently had dengue fever, which has come out. Equine encephalitis has been quite popular, but in this past research, we found that there were two main diseases which were mostly tracked and was the reason for many of the control, which is the West Nile virus and the Zika virus. Both viruses had significant declines in 2020. In West Nile virus, the activity is found across most of the states, but mostly within 38 of the states in the continental US. There was, in 2019, about 971 cases and 60 deaths for West Nile virus. But by 2020, that declined to about 664 cases and only 52 deaths. Within Zika virus, it was very big in the year 2016 when it became a global sort of outbreak of Zika, and it had a big impact. But in the last few years, the cases have been significantly declining. In 2020, there was only about 4 cases within the continental part of the US and about 57 cases in the territories of the US. All cases linked in the US in 2020 were linked to travelers. And as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic for both the West Nile virus as well as the Zika virus, we found a significant slowdown in transmission, just because there was less social activity and less people traveling to the US, which was less cases of bringing in the virus as well from other countries. So how do we treat mosquitoes and how do we work with it? Well, there are 3 main methods of control. The mechanical method of control, which mostly focuses on the water drainage systems. And this is by use of irrigation systems and to reduce any sort of potential area where water might pool, especially after heavy rain season. Most abatement managements and control managers will also contact, local landowners and raise awareness to try and identify and reduce any sort of areas where larvae might start to breed. On top of that, we have biological, which is becoming more popular in the last few years. This is the use of natural predators or sometimes bacterial-based insecticides, which can be used to reduce the population, especially within the larva control. There is the use of mosquito fish, which are natural predators, and there are currently about 80 different biological ingredients which can be used for control. The most popular method of control is from chemicals, which is predominantly the use of adulticides and larvicide treatments, which target all different types of mosquitoes and can be used across different landscapes. How are these chemicals applied? Well, firstly, one of the most common ways is through ground applications. It is used usually by the handheld ULV sprayers or vehicle mounted spreaders, which go through different potential areas of high activity and are either sprayed directly onto the surfaces and try and target mostly adulticide products. In recent years, there's been testing of drones and it is something that will be used most likely in the future. Currently, drones are being used for mission scouting to try and locate different areas of high water, and used for photography to try and take pictures of where they can potentially use larvicide treatments. And then for large areas where there is big landscaped areas and big high levels of water that's been pulled, we tend to use a lot of aerial applications through helicopters or fixed wing airplanes. And then through this, we mostly use granular applications and very little other types of biological or chemical applications used. So in 2020, we estimate the market to be worth more than $90 million US. This is an increase of 3% from the market value that we estimated in 2018. One of the biggest reasons for this increase was through climate control. We have a big change in weather, and then regions that have a bigger impact from this weather, which is most likely the South, where you have states like Florida, which are very humid and hot, tend to have much more of insecticide control. The South itself accounts for about half of these sales within the region, followed by the North Central. From the active ingredients, we mostly have many different ingredients which can be used, but the main ingredient found is mostly naled and malathion, which are used in adulticide treatments, mostly naled used in dibrom, malathion used in biphenyl. There are also a wide range of bacterial-based products from the Bacillus thuringiensis, and these make up the largest share of the larvicide products. And in total, we estimate that about 1.7 million tons of active ingredients were applied in 2020 across the continental United States. Out of the total acreage, about 60% of the available acreage is applied in 2020. This acreage number tends to change year on year depending on the activity of mosquitoes, as well as other constraints such as budget constraints, decisions of the application managers to not apply a certain area to prevent mosquito resistance, and then as well as environmental concerns, especially from consumers who might not want to see so much chemicals being applied constantly into a certain area. As you can see, in terms of acre treatments, we have adulticides that account for about 95% of most of the products being applied on the land in 2020, and larvicides only roughly about 5% of the total treatments. When we look at the adulticide brands, it's very straightforward. There are many different types of brands which can be applied in different types of ways. There are the top three, which is Duet, Dibrom, and Zenivex, which say account for about 50% of the total sales, and then you have other major brands that come involved. And almost all adulticides products tend to be applied as liquids in 2020. And they tend to be applied mostly by air and through the backpack sprayers. In terms of larvicide treatment, we can split the market into a few different types of application types. So there are biologicals, which account for the vast majority of this. And this is typically made from the Bacillus thuringiensis, and there are many different products within the biological spectrum. And then we have as well as insect growth regulators to prevent growth, and the majority of this is to the brand Alticid. And in fact, Alticid has the largest individual sales, about 30% of the market share for the total larvicide brands. And then smaller use, but still kind of popular, is the chemical products, as well as surface foams and oils. So in addition to our research, which we do conduct a practice and opinion survey, which we talk to end users who are most likely abatement managers or anybody who's in control of district control programs, and understand what they believe has changed for 2020, what they have done, and then understand what they plan to do for the future. And this is quite an in-depth study that we had about 105 surveys conducted between January and March 2021. And just to give you a little bit of insight about the types of questions and types of things we've asked them, we try to understand what their current expenditures were for the last year, whether they contract out their control or whether they keep it internally. They understand what chemical purchases were made for larvicides versus adulticides, any changes that they've done in the past few years and why they might have changed products, or what was impacting the changes, whether it was budgetary control. And then we also look at things such as why do they do the mosquito control, whether it's really for vector control or whether it's mostly just to prevent a large nuisance control from the public demand. We look at if there were any specific diseases that were being treated for, and that was a part of the reason why they went through this vector control program. If there are any mosquito resistance that they've developed in the last few years, or if there are any products that they've had to change because they've noticed mosquito resistance. And then we look at public support for larvicides or adulticides, if the public have any opinion in using off treatments, any of their frequent complaints we have tried to understand, and then any of the changes that might occur for 2021 or 2020, or future, and just in terms of budgets, or again about resistance or what might impact those changes. So a little sample of what we can get from this results that we have with our research. We asked about the mosquito resistance and if anybody detected it. So these were the main species that they found, were the Culex pipiens, Aedes aegyptis, Aedes dorsalis, Culex nigirapus, and Culex tarsalis, which are the most, these were the most detective mosquitoes found with resistance. Although it was only about 5% of respondents that found some sort of resistance, 95% didn't have any notice of it. Those that encountered severe resistance indicated that they would switch products to counteract the effect. Some of them noted which products that they found were more resistant and less resistant, and we would be able to give you an understanding of what type of products they switched it to. And finally, a little bit of forecasting here. We estimate the market to grow at 2.4% over the next 5 years. Well, as you notice, despite the fact that the mosquito control, the mosquito, insect cases had declined in 2020, there was still an increase in growth in the last few years, and that's still expected to happen in the next few years. And that's simply because, it's important to keep up with control management, and especially to prevent, disease outbreaks in the future. Things such as changing climatic factors, which can largely impact on the population of mosquitoes and diseases, especially new diseases that might be imported in, or outbreaks of specific diseases coming to certain regions. It's very important to have increased mosquito surveillance, try and understand the population numbers, and trying to make sure that case numbers remain low as possible. And so in order to do that, there is always a need to keep up with controlled treatment programs. The use of drones, as I mentioned, will become more popular. There's already been used in surveillance, but the likelihood of use of drones to apply chemicals is something that's been trialed by many different companies, and is something that could be a very promising change for the mosquito control industry within the next few years. Drones allow for precision for specific areas to help identify and to treat very sort of remote areas where water might accumulate, which previously would be far more difficult to have achieved. And in keeping with that, we also expect that larvicide treatments would grow in the next few years, really a change of use of more biological products, as well as the targeting of trying to reduce mosquito controls from the breeding perspective, and then that reduces, diseases and other problems in the future. All right, so I would like to say thank you. It was a very short webinar today, but if you would like to contact anybody regarding this report, if you have any questions, my details are there, but also you can contact Francis Davison, who is the key account manager for the North America region. And I will leave up the details here for a few minutes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anissa, for the webinar. It was short but informative, very interesting. Thank you so much. Again, we have lots of, if you have any questions, we can of course follow up with you. You can respond. You can follow up with any of the contact information in front of you, or you will receive that webinars@primegroup.com email, and you can respond to that email and we'll help you with any questions you may have. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to see you again in our next webinars. Thank you, Anissa. Leave it for a few more seconds. I see people are dropping right now, so perhaps we just end it. Thank you. Bye.